Hello all and welcome to week 4 of Ethics 2100 Online. I wanted to say just a few quick things to start off the week. It was interesting reading everyone's response to the McBrayer piece in the discussion board. Let me say, I get it. I know this stuff can be tricky. What I was most hoping that everyone would get from that reading was captured in his very last paragraph. Facts are things that are true. Opinions are things we believe. Some of our beliefs are true, others are not. Some of our beliefs are backed by evidence, others are not. Value claims are like any other claims, either true or false, evidenced or not. The hard work lies not in recognizing that at least some moral claims are true, but in carefully thinking through our evidence for which of the many competing moral claims is correct. It's a hard thing to do, but we can't sidestep the responsibilities that come with being human just because it's hard. Let's put it another way. What if I asked you this, true or false? Some opinions are better supported by the facts than others. Now, my hope is that everyone thought that was true. Or, similarly, true or false, some opinions are closer to the truth than others. Now again, my hope is that you thought that was a true statement. But if you did, that's why simply distinguishing between facts and opinions and then implying that the two can never overlap is unsatisfactory. You may be wondering why I think this is so important. Let me explain a little bit about where I'm coming from with this as a philosophy instructor. Now, I've taught philosophy for about 20 years, and quite often I'll run across a situation like the following. Let's say we're talking about some issue, for example, capital punishment. And one of the students in our class gives a fairly well-reasoned position for why she feels capital punishment is morally justified. Let's call this person student A. Then along comes student B. Student B offers an equally well-reasoned account for why he feels that capital punishment is not morally justified. Maybe he offers some additional criticisms for why he doesn't accept student A's argument. Now, as a teacher, I'm thinking, yeah, this is great. Let's get into this a little bit. Are A's claims true? Are B's claims true? Are the students considering all relevant evidence? Is either student make any apparent errors in reasoning? This is fun, right? But then along comes student C, who busts out with some variant of, well, that's just his or her opinion, or something to the effect of, see, people just don't agree when it comes to morality. And it's at this point that my smile turns upside down, for comments like this really do nothing to evaluate the student's positions critically. Of course people have differing opinions. Of course people disagree. But what I want to know is, which opinion is closer to the truth? And is there any way to reduce the amount of disagreement, at least to some extent? If you allow me, I'd like to make one more point in this context. I think it's important when thinking about ethics to ask ourselves, what is the point of discussions about ethics? Here's one answer that comes to us by looking at the history of ethical inquiry, and which I think will make a lot of sense to pretty much anyone. As you've already seen from thinkers as diverse as Aquinas and Hobbes, it is evident that human beings are social creatures. Humans live in groups. In fact, nowadays, most humans live in highly complex societies. Now, the reasons for this are obvious. Humans are better off living in groups than on their own. First off, there's safety in numbers. But beyond that, when you have large numbers of individuals working together, each contributing their own efforts and talents, a better world for all can be created. Each of us has a higher standard of living being part of a group than we could ever provide for ourselves on our own. Now, some of us may fantasize about living alone on some deserted island, but think about the effort involved in just maintaining even a basic level of sustenance. Plus, what if you get sick? What if there's a flood? What if your previously deserted island gets invaded by intruders? No, I'll take my internet, my air conditioning, and my 21st century medicine. Thank you very much. But while there are great benefits to living in a community, there are also challenges. We don't always get along, we can be overly selfish. Sometimes we fight and even kill each other. So the trick is, how do we derive all of the benefits of living in society while averting most of the negatives? Now, partially the answer lies in the law. We can create laws to help keep most people's behavior in check. However, most people don't want the law governing every aspect of their lives. Furthermore, what are these laws supposed to be based on? This, my friends, is where morality comes in. This is our main reason for engaging in moral inquiry. What are the principles that allow us to attain all of the benefits of civilization, but that will also keep us from killing each other? In other words, by what principles can we best live our lives? This is the ethical question. It's a very practical concern. How should we live? If we're looking at ethics in this practical way, we can see how someone like Barkalow would say that moral relativism really makes morality meaningless. When trying to figure out how we should best organize our social lives, does it accomplish anything to say, well, truth is relative? Do we really believe that any way of organizing society is just as good as any other? That a society that, say, practices arbitrary torture will meet our needs and interests as well as any other? I suppose that by now you've all already sensed this, but I'll go ahead and let the cat out of the bag anyway. I myself am what we've been calling a moral realist. I personally believe that there are at least some moral truths. Big surprise, right? I believe that at least some moral views are better than their alternatives, and this is because I see ethical inquiry as the attempt to find those principles that will best allow us to meet our needs and interests as persons. So this, of course, is the view known as moral realism, and a very basic argument for moral realism goes as follows. First premise: some moral principles would meet human needs and interests better than others. Those principles that meet human needs and interests better than others are true moral principles. Therefore, there are at least some true moral principles. Moral realism supposes that there is some objective set of human needs and interests. Now, to get the ball rolling here, to kind of get your mind around this, think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Okay? So you've probably encountered this at some point, maybe in one of your psychology classes. You can see there at the bottom, our most basic needs are the physiological needs, right? And then moving up the hierarchy, we get into the safety needs, social needs, etc. Now, this hierarchy, again, it purports to be an objective, right, set of needs and interests that every human being needs to satisfy in order to flourish, right? This is the kind of thing that a moral realist has in mind. All right? And so a moral realist would claim that whatever moral principles help us to best achieve these human needs and interests, those are going to be objectively valid moral principles. In other words, let's say everyone were to obey the principle, do not murder, right? Or abide by the golden rule. Uh, the more realist claims that following those principles are going to meet this objective set of needs and interests better than not abiding by those principles. Okay, so I hope you found some of that helpful or at least mildly interesting. Um, at this point, we'll be leaving the whole relativism, realism issue behind, and we'll get into psychological and moral egoism this week. So now, for the first time, we're going to start looking at what we call normative ethics, and that's the idea is specific theories telling us what makes an action right or what makes an action wrong. Okay, so before I go here, I thought I might remind you of the opportunity for extra credit you'll see at the bottom of the folder for week 4. And as always, let me know if you have any questions, and I will look for you in the discussion forum. Have a great week.